Hello. So I'm Santhi Pinkerton, and I'm here today with my colleague from Communications, Sandeep Dosanjh. And today we are starting a brand new segment of Eager News, and it's called Student Voice. And what we're going to be doing is we'll be throughout, who knows, the next year, maybe forward, going into the future, we're going to be speaking with students and student leaders in the community and also in our schools to address and talk about issues that we face as a district when it comes to race, hate, and discrimination. But before we begin, I'd like to introduce our student panel that's here today, and they've joined us. Even though school's out, they're here, and they're very happy to at least be able to have their voice be heard, and make sure that they have I'm sure that they all have some important messages to talk to us about and to send to us. So we'll get started. I have Victoria. Victoria, say hello.
Hi.
Victoria Martinez is a student at Laguna Creek High School, and she is an incoming senior, and she has been part of the Link Crew, also the BSU, which is Black Student Union, and she's also been part of the Elk Grove Youth Commission, as well as involved with the Student Equity Council. And she's also been an international baccalaureate student for the diploma program. So welcome, Victoria.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Next, we have Trinity Williams. Trinity, hello.
Hi.
So Trinity is a Valley High School student, and she is graduated just now. She's class of 2020. Very proud of her today. And she has been president of BSU, Black Student Union. She was also involved in AVID, or the AVID Senate, I should say, Link Crew. And she's already planning to go to, or she's ready to go to UC Merced and to study sociology. So welcome, Trinity.
Hi.
And then last we have Betty Tarefe. Betty is a student, or was a student at Sheldon High School. And she also was a graduate of 2020, class of 2020. Congratulations to you as well.
Thank you.
And she was the class president, or they call it the class captain. And she's also been involved with the BSU program, the Black Student Union. And she's going to be going to Sac State this fall in business management and business systems. So awesome. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to get started. I want to let everybody understand kind of what we're going to be talking about today, in that we're not only facing a health pandemic, it's been a crisis that's been going on for several months now, but we're also hearing the cries of citizens across the country, and even right here in our community, protesting not only the death of George Floyd, but also police killings of many unarmed Black people over time. And with me today then are our student groups and our student leaders, and they've been supporters of our local Black Lives Matter groups, who are want to make sure that their voices are heard and that they're shared with the community. So I've read information about Black Lives Matter at school. That's a particular group for schools, which is a national committee of educators organizing for racial justice in education. And what I like, in addition to the 13 guiding principles, is that the Black Lives Matter movement is a group of people who really want to make sure that everyone is treated fairly, regardless of their color of their skin. So just like people during the civil rights movement who worked to change laws that were unfair, the Black Lives Matter movement is people who want to make sure that everyone is treated fairly, because even though those laws were changed many years ago, some people just still aren't being treated fairly, and I think we saw that. So recently, when many of us witnessed the death of George Floyd, and across our organization here with Elk Grove Unified, we were appalled and we were grief-stricken. And it's time now for many voices to be heard. So I'm really excited to hear from our students on what has been going on recently, specifically to how the death of George Floyd has affected each one of you. So I'm going to start with Betty, and then we'll go to Trinity, our class of 2020 students, and then Victoria, if you could respond. So Betty, How have you been affected by the death of George Floyd?
I think it affects all of us, especially the Black community, because you're scared. What if that's your brother or your father next, and you just kind of don't know, and it's a when kind of question. If it's going to happen, when is it going to happen? Or is it just a matter of time? And we know that it's going to happen unless things change. So it's really affecting your home life, your social life, every aspect of your life. And because every aspect of your life is filled with people of color and you worry about them and they worry about you. So it's very tense, it's a very tense moment for all of us to feel scared that justice system is failing us.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Trinity.
For me, it was more of noticing what type of world we live in. Like, just George Floyd, that's something that's been, it's a number. Like, this is not the first person. Like, I've been hurt since Rodney King, and I wasn't even born around that time.
Right.
So it's like realizing what type of corrupt world we're in and the power of cell phones, and it's just like everything coming together. You just realizing like these are really the people that we expect to protect us, and they're not doing it as so. So it's just realizing, like how I've been prepared to go out in the world. Maybe I'm not prepared enough. That's how I feel, and that's not how I should feel.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Very good. Victoria.
For me, it's been mentally draining because I have two older brothers, and it just makes you realize that my reality, like the reality of people of color, especially Black and like Hispanic,
Mm-hmm.
there's just like whenever my brothers leave the house, my mom doesn't say, oh, like make sure to stay out of trouble. She says stay safe, because she knows that it's possible for like my brothers to become like the next George Floyd. And it's just been draining. It's traumatizing because you're seeing people that look like you die and nothing happens usually. It's bittersweet because there's a change that will come from it, but it's at what cost?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just like you realize how much support is crucial, because when you're like, when you're feeling super down, and when a friend gets a contact and it's like, hey, like I know things are hard, you just realize like it's crucial to have support. So
Wow. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Sandeep.
So going off the line of support that Victoria just mentioned, and Betty, we'll start with you. So what support do you need from school, Elk Grove Unified, or the community as a whole?
I think the community as a whole is what the support that we really need. That being said, it's our community's justice system by hand. We kind of need politicians and lawmakers and chiefs to stand up and speak up on what changes that they want to make, so people of color, especially Black people, don't fear away from them. At this time, they've been quiet, and a lot of people have spoken up. I've heard teachers speak up, I've heard doctors speak up, I've heard all types of people, but the people that we need most are our communities, politicians, our mayors, our people in office, and especially our police officers. They need to speak up and talk about the changes that they've made, the legislations that they want to pass to keep people safe, and to keep the number of deaths on officers' hands lower, because we as people are extremely scared. And from the school, it would be extremely welcoming if they taught their kids on the extremely corrupt justice system that fails everybody. It fails minorities, it fails the poor, it fails everybody, and we need our community to learn why it's failing and how they can change it. And I think the school has a really big platform, especially students. They're the future. So if we just teach them on the corrupt systems and how to fix them, I think we wouldn't have such a big problem in the future.
Thank you, Betty. Trinity.
I like to agree with you. Like, schools really do have a big platform. Saying that I went to Valley. I always joke and say I went to Valley for 12 years because my brother and my sister went there also. But I've experienced a lot of things at that school to where I feel as if um, there are certain teachers that don't know that they're teaching in a certain community, and they're not aware of the students of how they live. And there's even like a teacher that just came out last week that used to work at Valley, and she's, being deemed as racist and tweeting out stuff. So I'm just concerned about the safety of the students around these teachers that are ill educated on where they're teaching at.
Mhm.
So mostly for the schools, I would like at least just try to, um, get the teachers to understand what type of students they're working with before they even try to apply to schools. That way, like, we can feel more safe talking to them. Like, some teachers, I think they are like, they think they're protected in that way because, oh, look, I'm not racist, I work at this school. But it's never been the case. It needs to be more validation in that sense. And for the community wise, like she said, I think the community is where we need it most, because me being a graduate, her being a graduate, we're not going to that school anymore. So we're in the community now. So seeing that all these protests and riots, and we're just like, oh, we've kind of been sheltered in school, and we haven't seen that before because they neglect to teach us that type of stuff in school anyway.
Mm.
So it's like kind of eye-opening, like, oh, so this is the real world now. And I would just say having more people speak up and be direct with their words, not just, shying away. It has to be crucial, like something needs to happen now type of thing.
Thank you, Trinity. Victoria.
So I agree with both, because I do believe that solidarity is important. You can't just allude, because alluding to an issue, you're using the privilege to feign ignorance. You can't, you're not going to help with that. It's like silence is deafening and stuff like this. And I do also agree with the problem with teachers that they don't, I think the root of the problem is that there's not enough accountability. So for one of the teachers I've had, they've kept sending students out for no reason really. And I feel like as if it was more logged, or to where you can like catch trends and patterns, it would become obvious that, something's not right and that something needs to happen to correct that, because it becomes, you don't feel like going to school at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And we should also learn about our rights as like students, and also our rights as people more often, because you can't defend a right you don't know you have.
Mm.
And I feel like it should be the responsibility of a school to highlight those things, because you can get in more situations if you just don't know your rights, because yeah, as I said, you can't defend it. I mean, one thing I've also noticed is that IB and honors teachers versus like the CP teachers, they have like different expectations and different they just treat their students differently.
Mm-hmm.
And like the way you can change that is like the thing with the accountability, but that just seems to be a big problem. Yeah, I think that's basically it.
Thank you, Victoria. And IB is referring to Interbaccalaureate program, which is a program that is offered at Laguna Creek High School. Santi?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, ladies. So we're coming up towards the end of our interview and our opportunity to speak with you. And it's been awesome talking to you and hearing your insights and the world as you see it. And I think it's very helpful for everybody. So thank you. This time I'm going to let Victoria go first with this next question. We'll go backwards. So Victoria and then Trinity and Betty. So what would you like to see happen in this moment within the next few weeks and then beyond? And I think I forgot to say that Victoria has plans. She's looking either going internationally to school like Auckland, and or maybe going back east somewhere to Howard or one of the other colleges out there. But she's definitely looking at focusing on political science. So given that, what are you hoping for, Victoria, now and then in the future?
I hope that any of the change that does happen isn't temporary, and that when these changes do happen, the effects of Black students are taken into consideration. Wow. Wow. I want there to be more open dialogue like this just more often, because it helps with making sure that there isn't any ignorance. It's like you can be held accountable for your actions because you do know this. It's not like, oh, I didn't know. And I think a way you can do this is through advocacy classes. So in that time, you can do like, do you know Jane Elliott? Or she did an experiment called like Brown Eye, Blue Eye, things like that, to where you see like subtle things that if you're not Black, you may not notice. It's because most of the racism is not overt. It's just, it's little subtleties. And I think doing experiments like that, or where you find your privilege with doing like the line to where they ask you questions like, oh, like take a step forward if you're able to have a tutor, or take a step forward if you didn't have to watch your siblings after school. Just to show that within your own classroom, this is for students and teachers, that they can see that kids that are around them, they don't have the same reality as you. And you can see how race may play into that, because usually minorities, they tend to they're at a disadvantage. They're farther back than like everybody else. So, and we should also, like, as I said, like learn about like, learn about your rights, because that is crucial. You should learn about government. You should learn about civics, because we're going to go out into the world, and these are things that you should know so that you can just be a well-rounded human being and you can defend yourself. And yeah, there should also be closer relationships between people, the students of color, and also the administrative people at school. That's basically, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. All right, Trinity.
So I would say for schools and changing, definitely what she said about the students of color and the administrators being close. Like I found myself sometimes, like when I come into an account and texting my teacher, like, what should I do type stuff, like now that I graduated. So I feel like that should happen while kids are in school. So in order for them to, because for me, I feel like school is kind of a second home. So, and most of my teachers are really intimate with me, like teaching me like separately, because I would usually like complain about a lot of stuff, because I just never felt like Valley was very well represented for Black people. So yeah, I caught myself doing that a lot of times. So I would say just the teachers being more supportive, because you really don't know what people go through outside of school. And I realize that now that I've graduated, like now that I've went from school mindset to, oh, I gotta pay bills mindset. there's different privileges that I get towards, and I mean not towards, but compared to other people. Like specifically, Black versus white type of thing. So, and that's something they don't really teach in school. Also, I think that they should get outside of the textbook and really try to get into what's actually going on outside. So if anything happens to anybody, they would know why it would happen to them. And in the community, I can't even say anything cliche like equality, because that's nothing near. But at least keep fighting for it. I want to see everyone keep fighting for it, of course. And at least a little shift in policy or something. Like, that's all. I can't really even put into words what I want, because these are things that we've been fighting for over decades. So, yeah.
Very good. All right. Thank you, Trinity. All right, Betty.
I think from Tiffany's aspect, I really want to shine the bright on change from the community and change that we've been asking for so long. And the change is really shouldn't be argumentative when you speak or when you have open dialogue with people. It shouldn't be something that is argued upon, because everybody should already be educated on this topic. So I think the school should have a responsibility of opening the curriculum for more information to be put in, because a lot of times I've never heard Rodney King said in my history class,
Right.
but he was such a huge part of history, and it always made me question myself. Or when we're learning about the civil rights movement, you know, we learned a chapter when in reality, to this day, that chapter is still going on. And so from the school's aspect, I think putting more thought into what they teach and what they should teach that's still happening to this day is a huge aspect. And just having it so that when you have open dialogue, it shouldn't be an argumentative dialogue. It should be on something we all agree on, and it should be talking about what to change. And besides that, I think our community is also a huge aspect in voicing out their opinions. And I know a lot of times teachers are trying to, but a lot of times teachers don't even know what community they're teaching in, or how what they're teaching affects their students, and that's a huge part. And so a curriculum for teachers, teaching them who they're teaching to, how they should teach to, and it shouldn't really be a question. I think this should have already been done, and maybe it has to some degree, but I just don't think it's enough.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Sandeep.
So this next question is going to be opened up for anyone that would like to participate. Just raise your hand and then go ahead and start talking once I call your name. So is there anything else that you would like to tell your fellow classmates, other students, or anyone that watches this segment? Betty?
Yeah. To anyone who's watching this subject, I think educating yourself and your family is such a huge key, and getting that right education. I think that goes through watching YouTube videos or looking up online and having a reliable source, and teaching yourself history and why people are upset, instead of just focusing on the lootings, which I know is eye-catching and you want to go against people who loot. Understanding why people are so angry and why people start this movement is a huge key in not only educating yourself, but bettering your community and making everybody feel safe. And also calling on your governors, your mayors, your senators, any politician. They are such a huge key. And write them a letter, write them an email, write them whatever you can, call their phone number. Please do so, because they are what we need at this point in time. They are pretty much what the movement is trying to get to.
Thank you, Betty. Anyone else? Trinity first.
I just want to encourage everyone to stand together, mostly. Not saying just Black people, I'm talking Black, white, Mexican, whatever you are. We need to stand together in order to get far away from everything that we're going through now, because that's what we've neglected to do, and that's why part of the reason why we're in situations we are. We haven't come to agreements with each other. We've never tried to, stand together at all to fight against any of this. So I think moving forward, like she said, reaching out to everybody, but mostly the key word is really understanding each other, understanding where we come from, understanding that I can't do this, but you can do that, understanding why you have that privilege and I don't. Just understanding is what I really just want to get point. Yeah.
Thank you, Trinity. And Victoria.
Let's see. For students, I just want to say that, try not to discourage other students, because for me, like, a lot of the time we start talking about colleges, other students will be like, oh, you're only going to get into that college because you're Black, or it's easier because you're Mexican also. And even though I'm taking the same classes as them, we're working together all the time. So just keep things like that in mind, to where it may not seem like it's bad, but you just have to just educate yourself. And for the adults, or also students that are interested, focus on budgets, because when you look at a city's budget, you're going to see what's important to that city, and see how, try to, get in contact with your mayors, get in contact with your local officials to make sure that they change it to reflect what you think you need in your city. And yeah, that's basically it.
Thank you so much for the great suggestions for every single one of us.
Absolutely. So today we've had 3 of our great leaders from all of our students representing. They're here. They're the 3 of our Black student leaders. With Betty out at Sheldon High School, graduated class of 2020. Again, congratulations. With Trinity, also graduated class of 2020 from Valley High School. Congratulations. And up and coming, Victoria at Laguna Creek High School. She's an incoming senior. And these ladies are definitely going to be leading the way moving forward. They had today some great examples. They had insight for us, things that we can all learn from, things that we can take home to our own families, to our colleagues, and into the community. And I think their voices are definitely strong and they need to be heard. So I want to thank you ladies very much. And to our viewers, I want to thank you for joining us today on our Student Voice, our new segment. We urge you and we urge all of our viewers to really help students and fellow colleagues across racial and ethnic groups more deeply understand the realities of Black people's interactions with law enforcement officers locally and elsewhere. And as these students also said, in our schools, with our teachers, with our administrators, with everyone, with the staff. We also encourage our viewers to really form interracial coalitions. And I think this is something you heard from all of the ladies today in talking about the getting out into the community, reaching out to your local elected officials, and having discussions, having dialogue, not necessarily argument, but dialogue, so that we can peacefully oppose any kind of anti-Blackness and pursue racial equity, for Black Americans. We know that Black people should be involved in these coalitions, and we all must stand alongside them, just like they were saying that we need to stand together. So, ladies, thank you so much for being here. I know school's out, but I know all of us find this as a very important topic right now and something that we want to continue the dialogue on. All right, thank you very much.